Hi everyone, welcome to Southwest Fertility Center's Father's Day special. Infertility, or the trouble in getting pregnant, affects 1 in 8 couples. It is extremely common, but often couples are hesitant to even seek a basic evaluation as to why they're having trouble, just because there's so much emotions involved. Now, my name is Dr. Vinay Gunnala, and like I said, I'm here from Southwest Fertility Center, so welcome to our Father's Day special. So, as I said, Lance, a lot is not known about male factor infertility.
Yeah.
It can be the sole factor of infertility in 30% of couples, and another 20% can be both male and female. So if you put that all together, up to 50% of couples can be related to male factor problems. Just take us back to that time when you and Angie came to the office, and obviously you were coming in to see my mother, Dr. Sujatha Gunnala, which was, I think, about 3 years ago, right?
Yeah. I remember because that was the first time I started making those long trips. That was probably the worst part about it.
Long trips to Mesa office, hasn't it?
Yeah. Actually, like the Mesa office a little closer, getting off of that, 101. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting concept too. And you see in social norms and a lot of that, people too easily say, "Oh, it's the woman," right? Mm-hmm. Yet there's two parties that really kind of make up that dance. And I think that you guys did a very good job of kind of breaking it down and kind of like showing that with transparency without like pointing fingers, because you're already under a lot of stress, right? And then to be the one that could potentially be the cause of why the two of you could not come as a whole is an emotional, challenging time. Going back to the 3 years, it was constant meetings, peeling back the layers, and I always appreciated that you gave options. You said you can do this or you can do this. You never promised anything. You were always honest about what the possible outcomes. I think it mentally sets you for the journey, right? Because if you come in and think like, oh, it's going to be bam, fix, and then 6 months later, done, that's not it, right?
It's a journey for everybody. It's absolutely true.
So it was a long journey. There's a lot that we've learned, and I think obviously, if I could go back in time, would I have done things differently? Maybe. But the end outcome is I have a beautiful baby daughter thanks to you guys. And that wouldn't have been possible. So.
Very nice. I mean, when Lance first came, when I saw Lance and Angie in the office, he was so supportive. The thing I remembered is Lance was there for every visit, and he was so supportive, giving shoulder to his wife, and who was into the whole process, but not able to take the negative answers. But Lance was a cheerleader for her, for everybody, and this was one of the toughest cases I've come across in my 40 years of practice.
Well, I think there was issues on both, right?
There were issues on both, male and female here, multiple factors, but that's what it meant. What Lance said is peeling away each layer and correcting each problem.
Mm-hmm.
One by one.
One by one. And it took us 3 years to have your little bundle of happiness, little harper in your hands.
Yeah.
So, there's so much support. He was always there. I remember when one of the if I don't mind sharing.
No, of course.
The embryologist was doing an IVF with his sperm, but he spent 5 hours to find 18 sperm to do a procedure called ICSI, injecting the sperm into the egg to fertilize. And Lance was taking a long walks around the office.
Yeah.
And then he came inside, said, "Lance, it's done. We found it." So I remember that day so vividly, and also his support. He was there with his wife every step of the way, which I don't see that in many couples, especially the new ones who are starting out. They think it's not my problem, it's all females' problem. That is the wrong notion. They have to understand equally, 50-50, to make that little baby.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think I saw a patient today, actually this morning, that, you know, the wife was there and she said that, you know, my husband is at this point, you know, doesn't think it's his problem and he doesn't even want to produce his semen analysis. But we do know that the initial workup of male fertility is just a basic semen analysis to look at the number of sperm, the concentration, the motility, and the morphology and the shape, you know. And it's a simple test, but there is also a lot of pressure, I think, into it too, because it's one test for a male, whereas there's, you know, multiple tests on the side of the female partner. And so I think there's a lot built into the emotions of, well, if my sperm counts aren't good, that's what I'm supposed to do. And I think sometimes there can be maybe even a stigma associated with that, which there should not, but I think that's a part of the other emotional side of it.
Absolutely, and I think coming into it, right, and even different areas and things that you research, when it comes to the male side, they typically say there's not a lot that can be done. Not that there's nothing that can be done, there's not a lot. Where on the female side, they're like, oh, we can do this, we can do this, we can try this, or whatever. On the male side, you're really kind of limited.
Right.
And, you know, kind of what you guys were talking about, where some guys like will mentally check out. And as you see, I'm dressed in pineapples, right? Pineapples
yeah, you're
on
definitely
the Vans.
looking the best today.
You got to get in that headspace. You got to get in that headspace of like, I'm committed wholly to this. Kind of like, you know, a guy would support his NFL team. You'd wear his, you know, jersey, support your team. You got to support what you're doing. And every time we took a step, you know, I even researched things, and you told me at one point, Lance, you need to stop Googling things, right?
Yes.
But I wanted to know, what does this mean? What, like, I would see numbers and counts of numbers, and I'm like, is this good, is bad? And it, you know, it's relative. And, you know, counts were good, or counts weren't good, then counts were good, but motility was different, and morphology was good. And so, like, you start getting to these, you get some areas of improvements, and I think you got to celebrate even those little wins, right?
Yeah.
And then the last piece where you're like, I think we should try this. And to be fair, it's not something that I wanted to try. You know, having someone take a needle to your testicles as a guy doesn't really sound that pleasing.
Absolutely.
But understanding too, and kind of breaking down how a lot can happen in the journey, right? You may be creating good sperm in your testicles, but something that happened from point A to point B caused it. It's a long journey, as I've found out now. You think like, well, it's not that far, but and so, you know, kind of going that approach, your embryologist was anal, meticulous, and the sweetest person I've ever met. And that's exactly what I wanted. Someone looking at stuff like that is meticulous. And I even remember he would say, okay, I tucked them in for the night. So he took a general care and love. And it wasn't just him, it was all you guys. And, you know, the emotional ups and downs, like everyone was there and supportive, and you never felt like you were just kind of like on display. But anyways, I'm rambling on. But
I mean, I think it's some great points, because the finances of fertility treatment is undoubtable. That's there for everybody, but I honestly see it where the emotional side of it, the ups and downs, will take patients away before they have success just as much, if not more, than the finances. And I remember in your journey, not to go into it in too much detail, but, you know, multiple cycles of IVF, like you said, a testicular sperm procedure that you had to undergo, fibroid surgery for Angie, and 2 miscarriages before we got to our happy outcome with Harper. And I remember when I was doing the ultrasound at that miscarriage, and said, guys, I'm sorry, you know, that's that's the hardest thing that we have to do as a physician. And we gave you guys some time. We cried. We all cried together. You got hugs on the way out of the office. And I remember you still said, though, but this was the first time we got pregnant. And we did get pregnant, and that was so impactful because, like you said, you got to celebrate the little wins
Absolutely.
to have enough to go to the big one.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, and sorry again to Google information and stuff like that, I found that the chances really of success on the first one are very, very, very small, right? And from what I read and what I find is that sometimes the body needs time to build and make preparations. So I chalk it up to, as sad as the first our losses were, because there's nothing worse than hearing a heartbeat and then you go in next and it's just not there.
Yeah.
But I believe that those were the steps, creating the environment for our wonderfully healthy daughter that at a year old is in the 98th percentile of her height.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Well, my son's only in the 5th percentile, so you can give some percentages down to us.
Right, but you know what I remembered with Lance and Angie is not only the journey, but the stamina you both had, endurance you had to finish the race,
Yes.
and not giving up. And you know, I was there as a cheerleader only for both of you, but advising you what to do, what next step, what's important. That, you know, it took long time for us to make a decision to move on to next step, but you have to take your own pace.
Absolutely.
And that is important. We don't want to push anybody into any treatments that they're not comfortable with, but at the same time we need to be realistic. So at some points I do tell the couple when to stop.
Yep.
But I do tell the couple keep going. And sometimes I do feel so sad in myself is when they give up after little trying for a cycle or two and not giving themselves enough time.
Yeah.
And you know, if they can hang in there without breaking up or disappointments, I think they will achieve their goal of becoming a parent.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, as you guys talked about, like the stress
Yeah.
and loss, and I think that, you know, people come together in war, right? Seeing like traumatic events and stuff like that. And to your point, breakups, right? That will either break you or make you stronger.
Right.
And going through something like that, I saw my wife like grow stronger. You know, I saw her weaknesses as well, and you know, I tried to be there to be a little bit more of that strength to help her lift out and then on to the next step. So we were talking like, okay, this has happened. You can't control the past. We're going to meet with Dr. G next week, and we'll talk about what we can do for next steps. Because you can't beat yourself up on what you can't control.
Absolutely.
Only what you can control.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
What would because you handled it so well, and once again, this wasn't a journey that was new patient, next month we're pregnant. This was the farthest from that. But, you know, what would your advice be for, you know, a husband who's, you know, and a couple that's struggling with infertility and seeing treatment? What would your advice be to them?
You got to be open. You got to be open to all information. And if you're not, you've already defeated yourself. So if you're not open to hearing all sides of the information, you've already impacted your own chances and your odds, because depending on what the factors are, you know, 40 plus or whatever, you're already stacked with odds. And so, you know, I work in the computer industry, right? That can affect you, sitting long periods of time. Do you work outside? Do you work in the heat? You know, and us as men, we like to think that there's really not that weakness.
Yeah.
And accepting imperfections is not accepting weakness. It's identifying things that can make you stronger.
Yeah.
Right? No different than someone reviewing their play tape from previous football game. It's not that they were weak. They're looking on, how can I make it better? So you take in all that information.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say. You know, sit down, shut up, take in all the information, and once you've had that information, process it, and then ask questions. Because what I loved about you guys, you never shied from the questions. No matter how ridiculous they may seem for me, or if I repeated them, you know, you guys were always always there to kind of like ensure that we understood.
I know Angie had a hard time balancing her work,
Yes.
her schedule
Yes.
as a respiratory therapist, and then when it came for the surgery, I was saying that there is an indication for surgery, but I never pushed it. But you were there, advising her it's the time to move on, and that really helped too.
Yeah.
Like, having that surgery after removing the fibroids, where they were in a wrong location.
Well, you identified them early on, and you said, here's your options. I don't see that they're a problem now. If they become a problem down the road, I may change my opinion, right?
Yes.
And that's exactly what happened. Down the road, through the treatments and things are going on,
Yep.
you're like, we must do this, because now they're in the way, right?
It grew into wrong location.
And what if they weren't removed, right? Then we may have not had Harper or whatever. So again, you've seen a lot of things. You have professional experience. You have all this wisdom. It was time for us to just absorb and take it, right?
Okay, that's one thing I really appreciate, Lance. You were so trusting. You had faith in us, and I don't say loyal, but you were a loyal patient, because most people doubt what we are saying. Okay, why should I do it? Why should I do it? Why can't I do that? This is better for you. But they don't understand that what's coming backdoor knowledge we have, but they just don't trust. They say, okay, I'll go for second opinion. I'll go for third opinion. You are just unnecessarily you're beating yourself, and unnecessarily you're delaying your own process.
So here's a major fault that I see in changing plans, right? And I kind of think of it like if you have a trusted mechanic for years, right? You're not going to switch paths. You're not going to go to a new mechanic. But kind of more so, back to the peeling the layers, the onions, right? You're not going to know everything about someone when they walk in the office. You can't go, I've downloaded everything, right? Right?
No magic answer.
So you start peeling back and you get to things, and it takes time. It takes time based on the personalities, based on the history. Things are uncovered, right? Maybe people aren't that, upfront about things, and then eventually you find things out. Switching gears and going to someone else, they just have to start over peeling back the onion. So kind of like what you were saying, changing paths and getting a second opinion, that's great. But that person now has to start over, because doctors are going to look at pretty much the same. They're going to start based on the knowledge and experience and start working through the things. And as they learn and uncover things, it changes. It changes outcomes.
And it is a complex problem. Infertility is very complex, and we are dealing with two individuals. Also, the outcome is the third one, our fruit. We have to make sure all are perfect.
Yeah.
So it's not, this is the most complex field and most emotional, so closer to heart, other than a heart surgeon.
Yeah.
This field.
Yeah.
I mean, also, I think we require the most of all of our patients, as you can see, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of appointments, the amount of injections, if that's what the treatment is, but the amount of ultrasounds, appointments, blood sticks, this is just how detailed you have to kind of be looking at things, and it's not very patient-friendly, you know? But as you said, in terms of like kind of leaving and going some other places, I would hope that any patient, any couple, of the fertility treatment that they're getting treatment at is they have to have faith and trust in that center.
Absolutely.
If they don't, by all means, then they should be going to someplace else, because it's too emotional of a journey not to at least have that faith. And I think you and Angie showed it countless times in moments where we had joys and in moments where we had a lot of downs. There would have been moments to question and doubt, and to go to question and doubt, but you questioned us and stayed with us,
totally.
right?
And I still remember one thing in the small wins that gave Angie a lot of excitement. Do you remember how many eggs?
19.
And 19, and then the second one, it was even more.
Yeah.
Like
27.
27 eggs. Yeah. And like, I mean, that's great. I mean,
That's good.
And that doesn't guarantee anything. And it took you a while too to get them all.
It's a tough retrievals.
Every single one counts.
Yes.
right?
Right,
And so, all I can say is too, I mean, everything that we did, the 3 years, the driving, the meeting, the scheduling the appointments, the downtime, seeing the pain in my wife, trying to lift her up, the losses, it was all worth it.
It is worth it finally. You forget all that.
It's all worth it,
Yes.
and it's,
So wonderful. And now Harper is just had her first birthday.
yeah,
So
yeah.
wonderful. She's so
Now
beautiful.
she's walking, running around the house,
We forget all the pain
Yeah.
that we've gone through.
Yeah.
Just like a woman in labor, after delivery, she forgets the labor pain.
yeah,
This is, and they try to block us out.
yeah.
To,
And it really was the most amazing thing to witness when she was born, and just watching through all the steps, and you guys have amazing equipment, right? I mean, listening to the heartbeat and seeing something so microscopic. And I remember the first time that we were doing the insemination, and you're like,
The embryo
watch this, Lance.
The echo, the bright
Yeah,
echo,
right.
the shooting
It's
star.
like a shooting star. I was like, and there it was, and I was like, oh.
there is a shooting
There it
star.
is.
Yeah, you
There it
can
is.
see it on the screen. That's
Yeah.
our, and Lana calls it as a bloom.
Yeah.
Look at the bloom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that it's landing there, but what it does, we don't know.
Yeah, and that's why too, like, we totally believed in everything and the cause, and even when we had extra medicine and stuff, we would just bring it to the office to see if anyone else could use it, because we just know that there's struggles out there. And you guys, in a pinch, when Angie needed medicine to keep on track for something, you guys found one remaining that you guys had extra, and we didn't have to go to the pharmacy. And keeping on a routine is
Not easy.
very critical, right?
Right.
So even just kind of like that outside move and just kind of like saving us with that, I was just very thankful for everything you guys
I didn't
did.
even know that,
nurses
but
are
yes.
very good.
Our whole team. Our
The whole team, our
Yeah.
nurses and the nurse, Shelley had a nurse in the office, Janet, everyone.
Yeah.
From the front office to the embryology, we are all in emotionally.
And whoever keeps redecorating that room.
That's a lot of people.
Oh, I know,
Not
I
me.
remember you commenting about that room.
The collection room,
Yeah.
the famous collection
The
room.
famous collection room, yes.
But no, I mean, I think, when you're requiring so much of patients, both not even finances, but emotional time, investment, if that couple, from the moment they walk in to when they leave, they're going to be interacting with the whole staff, the MA who's drawing the blood, the person who's collecting the bill, the front desk who's checking them in, whoever's the provider doing the ultrasound. And if all of those, or the majority of those experiences, are negative, it would be pointless to continue, and that's definitely going to affect that couple's outcome. So it really does require an all-in approach, just like your outfit today,
All
and
in.
what you said already. All in from a whole family.
There was a book that my wife had given me, and it was talking about the father's journey on the pregnancy, and I kind of think that there's potentially a lot of guys that go through this as well, and this may be a factor that why they don't go to a lot of appointments. Seeing your wife go through these exams with different things can be an initial shock, right? And so reading through the book was like, first, like the guy's writing the book, he's like, get over it. This is all, they're focusing on her, blah, blah, blah. And I think that that's an extra headspace too. Like, if you're gonna go and you're gonna be with your wife through it, you need to understand why this going. Don't grimace and whatever, just, this is the medical profession, that this is what they're doing to ensure you having a child.
Mm-hmm.
That's
So.
right. They feel
Yeah.
I'm always looking at the wife, telling her what it is, and then the husband sits there, it's my problem, why are you doing all this? But that's where it's going to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, perfect. Well,
Definitely
thank you
appreciate
so much,
Thank
so
you.
much for coming
Happy
here.
Father's Day.
Um,
Thank you.
I know how much you wanted, and then all the best.
Thank you.